Welcome to Papa's Workshop. Today is a big day in the shop. I decided to make the touch plate to be able to do all three axes on the CNC machine. Yeah, that's right. I now have a touch plate that will establish my X, Y, and Z zero position. I love it. And I also had to write the G code to make it work. Wasn't that bad. Let me show you how I did it. I'm using the Starbond thick glue to be able to hold down my little auxiliary wasteboard. And all I'm doing is just putting the tape down on my wasteboard, and I put a matching piece of tape. And I'm going to go ahead and put the glue on. Then I'll flip it over and put it right in position. Now I'm using the lines that I did on the CNC machine on the wasteboard for the alignment. Now I'm just going to hold this down for a moment. Now in this case I did not use the accelerator. Probably could have. It would not have been any problem if I had. But for this one I did not do it. So this will be good and secure. And then I'm going to put this 1/2 inch MDF down next, and this is going to be for the project. Okay, I have my project board ready. I'm just going to go ahead and put the glue on this one, and I think I will use the accelerator this time. We'll flip this over and put it right in position. We'll hold it down for a moment, and it's ready. For this part, I just want to show this real quick. This is the first real project that I have done with this machine. Up until this point, I have done a lot of moving left, right, back, forth, and working with the Z-axis, testing out the universal G-code sender, and just doing a lot of learning. Well, this is the first real project, and there's a problem, and I want to show you this real quick before moving into the rest of the video. In the beginning, everything looked like it was going just according to plan, but in reality, it actually had a problem that was just beginning to show up. Okay, you can see that I have some movement here on my y-axis. The x-axis did perfect, but you can see that this thickness and this thickness are totally different. And you can see this small line here. That's actually where it should be. Okay, and this circle didn't cut out correct at all. So I had movement on the y-axis. And when I looked at it, the little set screw on the stepper motors had come out, fallen, and gone. Because I had used this quite a bit, and I didn't double check that. Now went ahead and used the Loctite, put some new set screws in it, so I'm going to give this a try again. But this is just one of the things that can happen, and this is how you can diagnose what the problem is. In this case, it was very clear on the y-axis was giving me the problem. Now that I have my CNC for Newbie new carve up and running, it's time to expand the horizons a little bit. One of the things that I have always shied away from was learning the universal G-code sender. And the first thing I want to tell you guys, it's not that hard. The second thing is I wanted to expand and learn some of the G-code. Again, it's not that hard. I was always shied away from it and really didn't want to go down that path. I'm glad I did. Well worth it, and it's been a lot of fun. And I put that knowledge to the test today by making the touch plate to be able to do the X, Y, and Z axis all in one step. It wasn't that hard. and this is something that you can do in your shop. I'm going to show you how today. I'm going to start off today making the touch plate in easel. Then I'm going to switch over and do the same thing in the V-Carve desktop. But I'm going to start off with a square, and I'm going to make it a specific size. The size that I've chosen is 3.5 inches. And then I'm going to position it exactly where I want it on my work area. Now I decided to use this as a specific coordinates, and I want that bottom left hand corner to be positioned at the X1, Y1. So all I have to do is just type that in with that box highlighted to the bottom left hand corner. And that will position this square exactly at that point. With the square highlighted, I'm going to go ahead and create this as an outline, and this is going to be my cutout. So I'm going to go down and click on this point right here and click on the outside. And now I'm cutting on the outside of my square, so my square is still 3.5 inches. Now I'm making a second square, and this is going to be the pocket. And I want this one to be set with the bottom left hand corner at the 1.5 on the x-axis and 1.5 on the y-axis. I have the bottom left hand corner now exactly where I want it, and now I can just pull this out and cover this entire area. The other thing that I want to be able to do is set this depth at 0.25 inches. So I can just click on this, type in the 0.25, and that sets it exactly. Now the other thing I'm going to do, just for the ease, is highlight this box, and I'm going to make sure that it cuts all the way through. Then I'll highlight the second one, and I can just resize it, or I could type in the exact figure. The next thing I'm adding is a circle. Now I want this circle to be 1/2 inch in diameter. So I'm going to lock that, type in 0.5, and there's the circle. Now right now I'm setting the depth of cut to be able to cut all the way through. Now later on I changed my mind and I set this circle to cut at a depth of 0.25, the same as the other pocket. But I do want it to be centered right there on that point, so with the center point highlighted, I can type in 1.5 on the x-axis, 1.5 on the y-axis, and that centers it exactly where it needs to be. So here's a preview of what it looks like so far. Now you notice looking at the preview, the pocket is actually covering up the cutout. So that's an easy fix. The only thing I need to do is just slide back over to the left, and I'm going to highlight my cutout. And then I'm going to go up to the edit, and all I need to do is just bring that forward. And now you can see how that looks. The next thing I want to deal with are the tabs. I don't need 4 tabs, and I certainly don't need the tabs there. Now since I'm using the glue and tape method, I actually could eliminate the tabs altogether, but I wanted to show you how to be able to use them. So in the menu section, I'll reduce it to 2 tabs, then I can just click on the tab and drag it to where I want it. The next step that I want to do is show you the cut settings. On this new carve CNC for newbie, I can be a little bit more aggressive. So I'm going to go with 50 inches for a minute for my feed rate, and I'm going to go for my depth. I've already changed this to 0.1 of an inch. Now that the design is completed in easel, I want to be able to give one last look at everything and make sure that it looks exactly the way that I want it. So I zoom in on the preview and I can roll this around and take a look at it. Once I'm happy with everything, I come up to Machine, select that, click on the Advanced, and then I can generate the G-code. From there, I'll export that G-code over to the computer. Now, one of the things that I didn't say regarding these settings is when you open this up and you have the sender settings, This is set for the max command length of 50. And what you want to do in the new version of Gerbil, you're allowed 70. So I went ahead and changed that to 70. You only have to do that one time, but that's important to be able to do. Okay, I selected the open, and of course I get the alarm code because of the homing. So we'll click on the machine control and select the $X. Now then, as usual, I like to be able to test this out. I only want this at 1 though. And I want to move it 1 inch to the right. And it does. So I'm going to go ahead and set my XYZ now, and we're going to run this program. I have this set up now where I can actually probe right here at this spot. So we'll go ahead and do that. And to be able to do that, I'm going to go over to my macros. And I'm going to hit this one right here for C2. There we go. It is done. All I need to do is select the file. And I'm going to go over here to the browse. And I'm going to go to desktop, and I want to do the copy of this. We're going to open it. So it is now set in here. If I want to visualize it, I can visualize it here. So let's do that real quick because I want to see what it's going to look like. And there we go. That's what the going to look like. You can see this is where my bottom corner is, and then it will go ahead and carve this out. So I'm going to close this window. I'm going to turn on the machine. Well, here we go, the beginning of take 2, if you will. This time it carved perfectly. There was no problems whatsoever. Having those set screws in place, yep, that makes all the difference in the world. Well, this is the beginning of the last pass on creating this pocket. But you can see that at this point, everything looks perfect. This is the way it should have looked the first time. Here's a view of the touch plate before I pulled it off the CNC machine, and as you can see, it looks perfect. To be able to make this touch plate work, I've got to cover it in metal. Now this is a roll of aluminum flashing that I had left over from a job that's just been laying around my shop. Time to put this to work. So I went ahead and laid out the size that I needed, and then I just cut it out. Now I used a utility knife to be able to cut that because I didn't want to use the tin snips to get a rough edge and have to deal with that. The knife worked really well because this is very, very thin aluminum flashing. To be able to attach this metal to my touch plate, I'm using 5-minute epoxy. So after mixing, I'm putting on a very thin coat. I want to be able to have complete coverage, but I also want to have a very thin coat so that when I put the metal on, I don't have any glue buildup underneath this metal. I want it to be completely flat. Next, I'm just going to grab the clamps and clamp this in place and let the glue dry. This will help to make sure that the metal is completely flat and secured to the MDF. Now I put as many clamps on there as I possibly could. The other thing that I did, there's a little bit of glue that were coming out, and I wanted to be able to scrape that away because I didn't want that to be a buildup to be able to prevent me from being able to roll the metal up the side. Again, I needed this to be square and true, so it pays off to be able to take a little bit of extra time now to make sure that the glue is where I want it and not where I don't want it. But the clamping worked really good. I was able to get the excess glue off, so now it's just a matter of waiting. Now it's time to glue the sides. So the first thing I need to do is be able to cut this little bit of metal there so that it will bend. Then using the flat surface, I'm able to roll this metal and make it completely flat and create a nice sharp edge. Now I just repeated the process on the other side. Again, just rolling this metal completely flat against the edge of my touch plate. Once I'm satisfied with how it looks, it's time to go ahead and glue this. Now I decided to glue both sides at once. Now I'm using the paint sticks to be able to help spread the pressure evenly across the entire surface. So with just a little bit of care, I'm able to put clamps on both sides and let this dry all at one time. And now we wait again. But while we're waiting, I can go ahead and get all the wiring taken care of. Now I'm using the same connector that I used on the Z-probe. This is one of the leftover RCA connectors that I had, and I'm just soldering an additional length of wire to it. Now on the other end of this wire, I'm going to use a little solder, and I'm going to create the hook. So this is the positive connection that will be connected to the touch plate itself. A little bit of heat applied to my heat shrink material, and this one is good as new. For the negative side of the wiring, I'm using a much larger alligator clip than I used last time. And all I'm going to do for this is just slip the wire in and solder it on. Before I connect the wire to this, I want to be able to clean it with a solution to be able to get all the residue off of it and make sure that it's perfectly clean, because I want to be able to make sure that I have good continuity to make sure that this works well. Here's a look at the completed touch plate with everything done. Now the next thing I need to do is get some measurements. So I'm going to flip this over so you can see the back side, and you can see that that is exactly a 1/2 inch, and if I measure to the other side, it is a 1/2 inch as well. So that is working out just absolutely perfectly, and that's what I wanted to be able to have. The other measurement that I need is how thick it is. So I turned it over on the side and I measured the thickness in several different places, and it is 0.27 of an inch. So that is going to be better than what I could have hoped for. Alright, I've got it all finished. I'm going to slide this right up here, put this over, then I want to move the bit over close to that. Now I literally wrote the G-code one axis at a time, tested it, and then continued on to the next axis and so on. The X that I have there is just a reference to be able to have as a starting point, and it doesn't have to be exactly there. So the next thing I'm going to do is click on the macro, and this is the macro that I wrote to be able to do this. So I'm going to click on this, C3, and this will do the probing. There we have it. All three axes are Z to 0. So we can now remove this and get it out of the way. I'm just moving the CNC machine over, and you can see that my X, Y, and Z are absolutely perfect. Writing this G-code wasn't that difficult. In fact, it was a little bit of a challenge, but it was a lot of fun at the same time. So once I got started, it was rather repetitious to be able to get this all to work out. And yes, along the way I did have a couple little errors that I had to fix, but hey, that's part of it too. All in all, I'm very, very happy with how this turned out. So don't be afraid to expand your horizons and give this a try. Here are both probes. The Z probe on the left, which I really like a lot, and on the right, the 3-axis touch plate, which is fantastic. Hi everyone, thank you for watching my video today. If you like the video, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button down below and the little bell next to it so you'll be notified on the different videos that I upload. Also, check out the videos over here to be able to stay up to date on the happenings in my shop. So again, thank you for watching my videos.